The big news in the political world this week has been about Scott Morrison's secret ministries. There have been plenty of reactions, some of the stronger ones coming from the Nationals. Keith Pitt has backed a Royal Commission into the government's COVID handling. He joins me now. He's been waiting patiently while we've had a couple of news conferences, so we have got to you eventually. Thank you for your time. Why are you backing a Royal Commission?
Well, it's great to be with you, Tom, from downtown Elliott Heads, getting my vitamin D. Thanks all the same. But fundamentally, I think there's something that we would have done anyway if we were returned to government. It makes sense to review the actions that were taken across the COVID period. It's a 1 in 100 year event, and you can always do better. You know, hindsight's always 20/20. But it's got to include the states and the decisions that they took, how our federation worked, and of course the impact on the Australian people. I just think it makes sense.
So as to exactly what happened on the secret ministry side of things, a lot of talk has gone to who knew what. You knew, what, in the middle of last year, that Scott Morrison had this power. Why didn't you say something?
Well, firstly, I did. Secondly, I'm trying to work my way back through all the activities we had over a long period of time to be a bit more specific about the timing, and I want to make sure I get that right. I did raise it with Michael McCormack. As Michael said on an interview on Sky on Tuesday, and I've been upfront since Monday that's what occurred. I took it to the Leader of the Nationals. I obviously had a number of discussions with the Prime Minister and his staff over a long period of time. But what am I to say, Tom? That the PM has taken a course of action for which, on all advice I had, he was able to take.
Well, did you ask him why he was keeping it secret and saying that he should not do so?
Well, in terms of my portfolio, there's not much secret about a media release in February where he said he took a decision under an Offshore Petroleum Act. That was very, very public. We had a range of discussions.
What was not public was him becoming the minister. Now, yes, you can point to that news conference. People didn't figure it out. There was no announcement saying he was the co-minister. Did you, at any stage, say that he should not keep that secret, that he should make a clear public announcement, not just leave a couple of clues out there for people to figure out themselves?
Oh, firstly, I wasn't talking about the press conference. I'm talking about a press release the Prime Minister issued in February, which was very specific. And I had those discussions with Michael McCormack, as you would expect. I'd imagine he raised that inside leadership. I don't know. I wasn't a member of the leadership team. But I was very clear with Michael of my view. But mate, I'm not going to go into the tin tacks of a
well, what
number
was your
of
view? This is not tin tack. This is a very simple part of it. It was kept secret. Should it have been? Did you indicate to anyone that you didn't think this should be kept secret?
Well, in my portfolio, Tom, as you know, there's one very specific decision, which is before an appeal in the court. So I obviously have to be incredibly cautious about my commentary, and I intend to maintain that. I know that journalists this week have been frustrated, but that is the reality of being in public life. When things are before the court, you have to be very cautious in your comments, and these are specific issues related to that decision.
Well, whether or not you told Michael McCormack or Scott Morrison whether or not this power should be secret or not won't affect this court case. Did you want this to be public?
Tom, as I said, it is one very specific decision. And until that case is completed and they've made their decision, well, I won't be getting into the absolute details. I'm happy to talk about it in generic terms, and I've made a number of statements about the timing.
But it's a very general question
when I became aware
as to whether you thought that what the Prime Minister did, that swearing in, should be made public or not.
Well, as I said, I raised it internally with the leader of the party in terms of the National Party. There were a number of discussions over a long period of time. But ultimately, the Prime Minister took a course of action for which I was advised he could take.
But you raised it how? You're saying you said, shouldn't this be made public? Is that what you said to Michael McCormack?
Mate, I said a lot of things to Michael McCormack. I'm sure he remembers it very clearly. But until that case is determined, I'm not going to provide running commentary on the process of a particular decision. I'm sure you can understand that, Tom. I know people are interested, but this is the reality of where it's at the moment.
Right, so once that case has happened, you'll reveal whether or not you wanted this to be made public, will you?
Well, we can have further discussions once that's finished. But it's just not appropriate for me to comment around that decision-making process, as I know you know.
In-court documents already out there, So these are public. Asset Energy says you assured them the permit on PEP 11 would be renewed. This was before the process had actually fully played out. Isn't that a case of apprehended bias?
Well, I haven't seen that particular claim, but as you'd expect of a Minister of the Crown, I was very, very circumspect, and I've said many, many times, including in the House and including in question time, it was a decision which we made on the basis of the law and as it was applied. I hadn't taken a particular decision at a range of times I was asked, but we were working our way through the process. I mean, Tom, this is a permit which has been around since 1999. It's not new. It's been there for quite some time. Labor had approved an exploration well in 2011.
But did you ever give a private assurance to Asset Energy or any connected company that the permit would be renewed?
Well, to the best of my knowledge, I never had a discussion with them or a meeting or gave any such assurance, as you would expect. There are probity issues associated with those decisions, and I've always been very cautious, not just in this case, but in all cases, to make sure that they are met.
You, reading between the lines, wanted this kept on the table while the Prime Minister wanted to clear the decks. New South Wales, the government there was the other half of the joint entity, and they'd made it clear they didn't want to be proceeding with this, and they made that clear in 2020. So when the licence was due to expire in February 2021, there was no way it was actually going to proceed, was it? Why keep it on the table?
Oh, that's not quite correct. I mean, the joint authority can make a joint decision, but the Commonwealth Minister can also make a singular decision which doesn't necessarily have to have the approval or agreement of the other joint authority member. That's just the legislation. But there are a number of steps in that process in terms of notification periods and others, and these are why they're very technical decisions that take some time.
So you could have gone it alone, even though the New South Wales government had no interest in it. That was a viable path, you thought?
Well, my understanding is that path has been taken before by previous ministers. And there's over 100 offshore exploration permits around the country, but this is the only one on the East Coast I'm aware of.
Did you, another question specifically on this, did you ever seek donations to the Labor Party from Asset Energy, Advent Energy or BHP?
Oh, not that I'm aware of. Fundraising gets done by the FDC and by the Queensland LNP. I go to any number of events, Tom, as I'm sure you'd be aware, every minister does, where there's a range of people, there'd be hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. To the best of my knowledge, certainly not.
But when I said, but have you ever sought donations, when you say not to the best of your knowledge, you'd know, wouldn't you? So isn't it either a yes or a no?
Well, I've never done that. But as I said, I mean, the parties raise funds themselves for elections as they're required to do. Otherwise, you certainly wouldn't be successful. Whether others have sought that in terms of their fundraising processes, I have no idea. For me personally, absolutely not. But my local FDC, they seek donations as well. Those declarations are made publicly as is required under the law, and it's all above board.
So are you aware of anyone else within the Nationals that sought specific donations from Asset Energy, Advent Energy or BHP?
Tom, that's a pretty broad question. There's 151 members in the House of Reps and 76 in the Senate. There is absolutely no way I'd have any idea what others have done unless I went and read all of their disclosures.
I'm not saying you know every single donations. I'm asking if you are aware if any of your Nationals colleagues sought that donation from those companies.
Well, no.
No. Okay, well, that's clear. Let me ask you finally quickly about electric vehicles. They've got a fuel emissions standard back on the table now under Labor. Are you going to claim it's the end of the weekend in the ute, or look around and see a lot of companies making electric utes and all types of vehicles?
Well, it's another broken promise, Tom, along with the $275 reduction in electricity. They said they wouldn't do this. I think Mr Bowen needs to be upfront about the fact that, as far as I'm aware, the 2 refineries left in Australia can't produce that fuel, and the price of these vehicles is some $6,000 to $8,000 more expensive. So he's saying to every Australian, you'll have to pay more for vehicles. And in fact, as a government, we're going to tell you what type of vehicle you have to buy. Now, I just fundamentally oppose those types of decisions, and the regulation of people's purchases in terms of vehicles is wrong.
All right, we do have to leave it there. You're doing a bit for tourism. It's a nice spot there. We'll let you get back to it. Keith Pitt in sunny Queensland. Thank you.